Ooh, Sydney, the kids are fired up right now on the old Twitter machine. We sent out the hit to the back of the head from Brad Marchand last night and simply asked, is this the right call? He wasn't suspended. He wasn't fined. He wasn't penalized on the play. Daniel Stoddart wrote in and said, no, that was a vicious hit on an unsuspecting player's head. Don't do it again. Doesn't cut it. People are fired up, probably because it's Brad Marchand.
Yeah.
But people are fired up.
All right. Here with the message to those who are fired up is Brian Burke, Sportsnet hockey analyst, joining us from the CBC building. Brian, it's great to see you. Your reaction to people who were angered a great deal by that last night is what? What would you say to said people?
Well, first off, I think the league got it right. This is not an action that warranted supplementary discipline, not a fine, certainly not a suspension. If this were Joe Smith, no one would be upset about it, but it's Brad Marchand. And the league has taken the position that when they analyze a hit itself, the actual act itself, they don't look at the name on the back of the sweater. So you're not, the prior convictions, if you will, the repeat offender status, that only kicks in if they feel that action, that hit is worthy of a suspension. Then the wheels to start turning on repeat offenders. I don't know how you can call this a vicious hit. I'll show you a vicious hit if you want. This is, as I said earlier on TV, this is like when you're a kid and you're in the grocery store, you're being a jerk and your dad kind of cuffs you upside the head. No one can do it anymore. I know I'm going to get all kinds of emails. You can't hit your children. But when I was a kid, you got hit, you get a little wang off the top of the head, a little cuff, and smarten up, kid. That's what this was. And it's nothing. And, you know, this would shock people to know. When I did supplementary discipline for the NHL, the agreement we had with the union was a cut under 10 stitches was considered a shaving cut, not actionable unless there was something else that warranted. But clipping a guy with a stick and cutting him for 10 or fewer stitches, shaving cut. These guys are tough. This is no big deal.
And Harrington said as much today, though the one thing he added was it should have been a penalty. The other people that are weighing in on this, and myself included, how do 4 officials miss that and not penalize it on the ice? Should that be the conversation? And when you were doing supplemental discipline, would you ever call the refs and go, like, what are you doing? You're putting me in a spot where this is going to go unpunished.
They're in a scrum. The 4 officials, it's not like they're watching birds. They're watching a scrum. And if you watch, Brad actually takes a little look around to see if anyone's looking and cuffs the guy. It's no big deal. I would say to Scott Harrington, it's a minor penalty, I guess. I think in this game, Chara's punch when Josh Anderson finished a check on him and Chara protecting himself actually delivered a harder punch than this. I didn't think that was a penalty either. So to me, we've just wasted more airtime on a non-event than we should have. But it's amazing to me what social media does to things like this, that hockey players like Scott Harrington knows this is nothing.
Right.
I mean, and it's the playoffs. So if you want to get even, take a number. You play him again next year. He's not afraid of anybody. He's not going to hide from you. Find him next year and sort it out.
So the part that you like about this, Brian, and I get the sense that there is some sort of enjoyment, and I remember the truculence line, is that this brings added intensity to the series?
Well, I don't think it needs added intensity. I think Brad Marchand is a frustrated hockey player right now. Things aren't going right for him. Things didn't go right for his team last night. He's frustrated. This is a guy, whether you like him or not, he's a really good hockey player. He's really competitive. It's clear to me he's frustrated. So no big deal. Play on.
Okay.
Excuse me, guys.
No problem at all. Are you kidding? Berkey, one last thing on that. My only problem with it is this league, to me, seems like a league where if Harrington were to have slipped on the way down and hit his head, and we have like a Joe Pavelski situation, then people would have jumped all over Brad, would they not have? Like the reactionariness of the league, I find, that's the only part of this that I have a bit of a problem with. If Harrington is injured in any way and stays down for a significant period of time, then someone would have acted. Agree or disagree?
Well, it's a different set of facts in that case. This is a little tap, but if it turns into something more serious, then the league has to act on it. You take the consequences of your action into account. So, yeah, they might have reacted differently, but then, I mean, if it's a hypothetical, and hypotheticals, as any lawyer will tell you, You can make any case with a hypothetical. It didn't happen. Move on.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on. Oilers?
Forget the rest of the ice?
No, we're gonna go to Carolina in a second here. If you're Bob Nicholson, Berkey, and I know you're not, who's your guy? Who's the guy you look at and say, I need that guy to run this team?
Well, first off, you're assuming he's only going to hire one guy. And I played with Bobby Nicholson many years ago at Providence College. We both played for Lou Lamoriello as freshmen. Then he transferred and went on to be a star in Western Canada. But I think if you look at this list of names, my guess is that Bob Nicholson has interviewed all of these guys. And if he has not interviewed them, he's waiting for permission to interview them. Some of these guys are not going to be given permission to interview for jobs until after the draft. Teams are getting ready for the draft now. The under-18s were just in Sweden. This is when teams are fine-tuning and finalizing their draft list. And so I know when I hired Brad Treliving in Calgary, I didn't expect to get permission to hire him till after the draft. I was amazed when Donnie Maloney, who's a wonderful guy, and let him come early, I was amazed that he gave him permission. We thought we'd have to wait till July 1st or last week of June to do the interview process and bring Brad in. I didn't interview anyone else. I just brought him in. But had I had time, I would have gone through an interview process. The good thing about an interview process, if you're Bob Nicholson, is if you talk to all those guys, you're going to learn a lot about your own team, what other people think about your players, what other people think about your scouts and your coaches. It's a helpful process to the executive doing the interviewing. So I'm sure he wants to talk to all of those guys, but he's not going to get permission. My guess, I haven't asked Bob that, he's not going to get permission to talk to some of those guys until after the draft.
How tough a job is this in Edmonton, given the fact that they're somewhat against the cap? They've got a young team and one of the best players in the world, but some extreme disappointment in the last couple of years.
Well, it's a big job, but the guys are going to be lined up around the block to interview for this job. You got Connor McDavid, who's the greatest player on the planet. Argue it's Sidney, argue it's someone else, argue it's Nathan McKinnon, but he's one of the 3 best players in the National Hockey League, and you're starting with that. Then you start with Leon Draisaitl, who's a 100-point guy. So you're starting with 200-point forwards. Guess what? I never started in any of my 5 GM jobs with 200-point forwards. What a nice luxury to have. Now, they've got issues. They've got cap problems. They've got things they got to sort out. But I would like my odds if I started with 2 of the top 30 forwards in the National Hockey League or top 40 forwards in the National Hockey League, and one of them is number 1, and the other one's somewhere between 30 and 40 or wherever you rate them. Draisaitl's a really good player. So you're starting with 2 fundamental building blocks that most GMs never get. Never get a player of that caliber, never have a player of that caliber of Connor McDavid. So this will be a sought-after job. You've got a brand new building, a profitable team. You've got solid ownership, all the things you worry about as a GM when you take a job. Team's not moving, team's not losing money. So a lot of the things, like when I went to Vancouver in 1998, and again, dating myself a little bit here, the team lost $36 million the year before I got there.
Right.
All right, so you're not dealing with that. This is a profitable team. Stable owner. My owner sold the team after I'd been there for just a couple of years. None of these issues that you've got to worry about in Edmonton. Great fans, unbelievable fans, buildings jammed.
Yep.
Like I say, people will line up around the block to interview for this job. Bob Nicholson will get to select from that group that you saw or any other names he has. Those are all qualified people. Those are all people that warrant being in this discussion. He'll be able to select one or more. What I would do if I were there, especially if you're going with a Kelly McCrimmon or a Sean Burke, if you're going with a rookie guy, okay, these guys have never been GMs.
Yes.
Being a rookie GM on a Canadian team is really hard. Like, I cut my teeth in Hartford. No one even knew I was there. But being a rookie GM in a Canadian market is lethal. So I would say if you're going to go with a younger guy, then you better put some gray hair in there too. You better hire an older guy, a Dave Nonis or someone like that, to help the young guy walk through it.
Understood. Brian, always appreciate your input. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.